Hi, how you doing? I made a video recently looking at what the best looking martial art was, and a number of you commented that it was irrelevant, and that martial arts are about fighting. How it looks shouldn't matter. And while I tend to think that different people want different things from martial arts, and that's okay, it's probably a fair criticism. And so in this video, we're going to see what the most deadly martial art is. Now, obviously, before we start, we need to identify the criteria we're going to use. We're not going to worry about what they look like, not even a little bit. I don't care if you think it's boring or if you just don't like it. That's not relevant. The only criteria I'm going to use is how easily could you kill someone in a one-on-one fight. I'm not going to cut out any slack for whether you think it's a good thing to use when being mugged by 1 billion people in a car park covered in broken glass and razor wire. We'll look at self-defense in a different video. So assume you're in a large, flat, pleasantly warm training hall, there's room to move around and your opponent doesn't have any mates with them, or at least none that are willing to join in. Your opponent's the same age, the same sex, the same size and the same level of fitness as you, but has no martial training. How quickly could you kill them if you were at black belt level in an art, using nothing but that art? For reasons of consistency, we're going to use exactly the same list as the last video, and so here they are again in alphabetical order. Aikido, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, capoeira, catch wrestling, HEMA, judo, karate, Muay Thai, ninjutsu, taekwondo, and Wing Chun. So no, I haven't added in your art since the last time. I know I probably should have done, but I didn't. I'm sure you'll find a way to cope. So, out of 100, how effective is Aikido? Well, it isn't really, is it? It's probably fair to say that if you're already pretty handy and have a good understanding of grappling, then you can use what Aikido teaches you pretty well. But if all you have is Aikido, then you're going to struggle. And that's before we look at the sort of thing Aikido teaches you to do. There are a lot of arm locks and throws which you're going to struggle to kill anyone with. Yes, there's Kubishimi, which is a choke, but even if anyone actually taught it, you're going to have to learn how to set it up, and in reality, that's not going to happen in Aikido. 15. Boxing. Now, I don't think anybody will argue with the basic fact that a decent boxer can hit someone with no training pretty much at will. And if the criteria was which art is better at breaking noses and knocking people to the floor, boxing would be right up there with the winner. But a KO isn't a kill very often, even on the street where people are falling onto concrete. Boxing is a brilliant way to create an opportunity to kill your opponent, but with no grappling, no kicking and no groundwork, it can't score highly on these criteria. It is better than Aikido though. 30. BJJ. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is pretty much the polar opposite of boxing in these criteria. It's stuffed full of chokes and strangles, but while it's based on judo and borrows heavily from wrestling, it almost always struggles with takedowns. And the fact that most people start rolling from kneeling or sitting means that when it comes to setting up those finishing moves, they sometimes struggle. But I do have to mention that my criteria do play into BJJ's hands in some ways. As arts that actually award belt ranks go, it's unbelievably stingy when it comes to handing them out. So a black belt in BJJ is going to have a lot of experience of fighting. They probably don't have to take you down to choke you out. And if they do, they're going to find a way. 70. Capoeira. I know I said I don't care how gorgeous an art is this time. I lied. We're not going to talk about capoeira without mentioning it at least once. It really is bloody gorgeous. However, from a purely technical efficiency perspective, it's possible that it might just be a tiny little bit overly flashy. There's lots of evasive movement and loads of strikes that are hard to predict, even for people who do it. And there's even a bunch of takedowns, but not a lot in the way of finishers. So, it's better than boxing, but it's far from the ultimate killing system. 45. Catch wrestling. Takedowns, throws, locks, chokes, strangles, and, depending on who you learned it from, a fair number of sneaky strikes as well. You could do a hell of a lot worse than rely on catch. It might not have the technical detail of BJJ, but the setups, the throws and the takedowns raise it well above a pure grappling art. 90. HEMA. Well, this is awkward. Obviously, an art where you have a sword is going to be pretty handy if killing people is your deal. But I guess what we're really asking is whether an experienced practitioner can defeat a complete beginner. In grappling arts, a few months of training gives you enough to start dominating people who haven't trained, even if they're stronger and fitter than you. In striking arts, it takes a little bit longer, and there's always the pervasive concept of the puncher's chance. I'm not sure I agree with that as a thing, but there's always the opportunity of a lucky strike from someone who moves in a completely unpredictable way. It's just that in boxing, one lucky punch is unlikely to kill you. One lucky hit with a sword is a little bit different, though. Beginners often do much better than you'd expect with a sword in hand, but can an experienced instructor beat them? Well, yeah. In my experience, they absolutely can. I wouldn't have spent 20 years teaching it if I didn't think you got better with training. 95.649. Judo. The throws of judo are probably the best out there. You might argue that Greco-Roman wrestling beats it, but not in a world where people wear clothes. The takedowns, the groundwork, the striking are all either gone or given a much lower priority than some arts, though, so it isn't the perfect art by a long shot, but it's still going to score pretty high. 80. Karate. It's not that I feel that I wasted 8 years of my martial arts journey, but I kind of wasted 8 years of my martial arts journey. The throws that some people say are part of traditional karate are rarely taught. The striking is pants compared to boxing or Muay Thai, and the difference between traditional kata and gion and what passes for kumite is massive. I mean, it's fun. There's massive opportunity to tailor your karate practice to your own personal interests, but when it comes to deadly combat, nah. Still better than Aikido, though. 25.1. Muay Thai. It suffers from a lot of the issues boxing does, but it does have kicks, it does have clinch work, and it kind of has a throw or two, so it isn't catch, but I'd pick it over karate by a country mile. 48. Ninjutsu. Is it real? If you think it is, can an art that's rarely, if ever, done against a non-compliant opponent rate highly? There's a big debate to be had there, but that's probably for another time. You could argue that it has weapons, but I think they just compensate for the fact that it isn't really fighting. It's more effective than Aikido, but less than boxing in my mind. 25. Taekwondo. A bastardized form of Shotokan taught across Korea during the Japanese occupation, which was unified on the orders of the government, is hardly going to make it a particularly deadly system, especially when it's adopted into the Olympics, and over the subsequent 2 decades becomes more and more removed from the original realities of the system. There are those that say it proved its effectiveness in the Vietnam War, but I don't think we should judge an art now on the hearsay of half a century ago. 20. Wing Chun. There's a lovely idea that the art of Wing Chun was heavily influenced by English pugilists among the sailors who visited China during the opium trade of the 18th and 19th centuries. But I've yet to see any concrete proof of that, and however enticing an idea that is, it doesn't change the fact that there haven't been many people able to prove it works in real fighting. However, it does have several weapons within the system, which are going to help a lot. So, I can't rate it very low. 47. So there we have it. Rather unsurprisingly, if killing people effectively and efficiently is your thing, then use a sword. But I think it's interesting to note that with the exception of boxing, those arts that genuinely compete against resisting opponents are the ones that sit at the top of this list. In reality, boxing's only as low as it is because it's very constrained by the rules. If we were to include early boxing, classical pugilism, then the throws, the elbows, the techniques that are now banned would bump it a lot higher. But now, let's put our list next to the list from the last video and see how they compare. It's probably fair to say that those arts that are the deadliest look the worst. Or maybe those arts that focus on aesthetics tend to do so to the detriment of effectiveness. It's probably also fair to say that those arts that combine a number of different ways of fighting tend to be the most deadly. Anyway, over to you now. What do you think? Do you agree? Or have I got it wildly wrong? Stick something in the comments and let me know. If you aren't already subscribed, then please consider hitting the subscribe button. In reality, it makes very little difference to your day-to-day experience of YouTube. The algorithm is still going to show you whatever it thinks you want to see, regardless of your subscriptions, but it does change the way my channel is perceived by YouTube and potential sponsors. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Fight team!